them as being unsound of mind, selfish, or a threat to their community. The heretics of today are labeled conspiracy theorists, anti-science, anti-maskers, and anti-vaxxers. By doing so, those that control government and media have successfully managed to rip apart the very fabric of human relationships. They have turned neighbor against neighbor, co-worker against co-worker, friend against friend. They even inflicted damage in the heart of the family unit itself. If those that condemn you for being concerned about our direction could glimpse the future of our present course, they might reconsider their treatment of you. Maybe you wouldn't be called selfish anti-maskers anymore. They would see that most of us simply want to avoid a future where a loaf of bread is unaffordable and our children have no future. A world in which the governments have dismantled the economy and food supply on the altar of COVID. A world where you may see your neighbors hauled away to COVID facilities against their will if they suffered the misfortune of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. A world where contact tracing is the deciding factor of the challenging consequences of government. A world where we are biometrically scanned to access our testing or vaccination status in order to access society. A world where your ability to provide for your families would be cut off if you don't submit. A world where every basic human behavior has been modified by a pseudoscientific dictatorship of technocratic control.
My name is Diane Doucet. I am a human rights activist and I love humanity.
There are practical reasons why the foundations of healthy human interaction have been cut off and corrupted. The helpless are controllable. They will tolerate the abuse inflicted on everyone because they genuinely believe that all the erosions of freedom are designed to save them. They view anyone who doesn't support what the government is doing as a threat to their own safety. But they have been manipulated to feel this way by a coldly calculated system. When people are isolated in fear of each other, their instinct is to turn to the box in the corner of the living room for guidance. The authority figure that dictates from our television screens then becomes the only savior. The exploitation of cases are enabling government to justify their position with enormous collateral damage. Those who have hijacked our world for their own ambitions and gains have placed humanity in a checkmate position by creating our collective situation while also posing as our saviors in their quest to subjugate us all. This is so much bigger than masks. These steps are merely tools of leverage in order to impose more chains on humanity.
COVID is only a piece on a chessboard, the measures. They're only a piece on a chessboard of a broader agenda.
They will only release us from their chains and into a modified version of false freedom if we relinquish our entire being to becoming dehumanized test subjects of the pharmaceutical industry and its technocratic apparatus. The end goal is to have every human being on this planet injected with experimental COVID vaccines, whether we consent or not.
Profit definitely plays a role. If they want to inject every human being on the planet with a vaccine, 7 billion people, multiply that by the amount of money per dose, those companies are going to rake in a lot of money.
History has taught us an important lesson. When it comes to science, the practices of today can become the horrors of tomorrow. That's why human beings must always have the final say in their participation of the endeavors of science. We must never let the white coat and the dark suit become substitutes for deities.
Our whole world is being restructured. All our liberties are being stripped away from us, and even ownership of our very bodies is on the line.
We know know the second corporations have authority over our bloodstream, we and all following generations find ourselves as the laboratory mice of an unaccountable industry which has already left a trail of devastation in its wake. When one violates another in the name of benevolence, it ceases to be benevolent. It becomes an assault on the human condition. Thankfully, freedom is alive in New Brunswick.
Our whole way of living is under attack. Our prosperity, our ability to feed our children, everything is being dismantled on the altar of COVID.
Deliberate financial devastation is being used as a means to restructure our world. How will you defend yourselves? Will you do so by willingly walking into the bitter cold of homelessness because the system decided to use the swords of poverty and dependency against you by shutting down your business?
We do not consent! We do not consent! We do not consent!
It is utterly unjust that anyone, regardless of profession, should be coerced into any medical procedure against the threat of finding themselves without employment. If we allow this injustice under COVID-19, they would only be the first dominoes to fall in the total subjugation of humanity. Thankfully, more and more people are seeing through the smoke and mirrors. People are starting to relate. Eventually, this dark chapter will be remembered for what it truly was, not for what the system tried to sell it for.
All the countries are following the same script, it seems. It's just, they're all marching to the same drum.
To the enforcers of the rules, please remember that your children will have to live in the world you are helping create today. What will you say the day they ask you, why did this happen? Why aren't we free? What were you doing when the control system came into being? When faced with such questions, would you be able to look them in the eye and say it was because you helped build the walls that imprisoned them? What if all it takes is for us to stop cooperating with our own enslavement? What if people protected their livelihoods by saying, "No, we will not destroy all that we have built. You will not shut us down. We will go on." We have what you can never have, even with your limitless money. We have the most powerful weapon in existence. We have a heart, and we will use it.